Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
The Israeli army got an early morning wake-up call this morning in the form of an explosion along the Gaza border. No IDF soldiers have been reported injured in the blast. At this time, no terror organization has yet claimed responsibility for the attack, but as per policy, Israel holds Hamas responsible for all aggression in the Gaza Strip and has counterattacked Hamas targets. Israeli tanks have just opened fire on several military targets in Gaza belonging to Hamas. This comes only 24 hours after another explosion rocked the Strip. That would be yesterday's attempted assassination of visiting Palestinian Authority Prime Minister Hamdallah. Today's explosion reportedly came from an improvised explosive device, or an IED, which can be tough to defend against given their unpredictability. Several Israeli troops were seriously injured in an IED explosion in the Strip just last month, and with tensions simmering, the army is likely gearing up for more. Suspecting that the Islamic State fighters in the Sinai Peninsula are using Israeli SIM cards to communicate, the Egyptian military has been jamming Israeli cellular networks in southern Israel. Roughly 300,000 Israeli residents in the south are now struggling with shoddy service as well, though. The jamming has been going on for weeks now, and last month the head of the Eshkol Regional Council said residents were being subjected to, quote, intolerable disruptions, end quote, where they could neither receive nor send texts or calls. According to a Wednesday report in the Globe's Financial Daily, the Israeli army was intentionally not intervening, despite Egypt deliberately jamming the signals, which in effect is a breach on Israeli sovereignty. In an emailed response to the Times of Israel, though, the IDF said that they were aware the disruptions were caused by the Egyptian army, and that the matter is, quote, being dealt with. HEBRON shooter Elor Azaria, the former IDF sergeant who shot dead an incapacitated terrorist in March 2016, was today reviewed by the prison parole board. Azaria has now served roughly 9 months of his 18-month sentence for the murder of Abdel Fattah al-Sharif, and at the hearing, the military prosecution opposed paroling Azaria after only half his sentence. But prosecutors did not object to his release after 2/3 of his time served, be it with good behavior. If approved at that time, he'd be released after just 1 year in prison total, on May 10th. Though being released on good behavior after 2/3 time served is fairly standard in Israel, Azaria's conviction was especially controversial, as the nation was divided between calling him a murderer and a hero. To complicate matters more, it was also noted that though Azaria is behaving well and doesn't constitute a danger to society, he also has shown no remorse and has taken no responsibility for his actions. Actions that, according to the prosecutor, were premeditated and undermined the IDF's moral strength. The parole board is set to make its decision for Azaria within the next few days. The Hamas terror organization has now claimed that it is fairly close to finding the culprits behind Tuesday's attempted assassination of PA Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah. The Hamas security forces head Tawfiq Abu Naim said, quote, the investigation is underway and we will publish its findings when it's finished, end quote. Apparently, Hamas has narrowed down the search to 2 cell phone companies in the Gaza Strip, which were used to detonate the 2 explosive charges. The 15-kilogram bombs were planted roughly 40 meters apart and nearly 2 meters deep, but thankfully the second charge did not go off. Several employees at the suspected mobile companies, Watanio Mobile and Jawal, have already been arrested for refusal to cooperate with investigations. In other news in the Gaza Strip, world powers have just released a 46-page report out of Rome after meeting on the future of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. This following massive U.S. funding cuts to the Palestinian Refugee Aid Organization. According to the report, quote, the Gaza economy cannot survive without being connected to the outside world. Any effort at economic recovery and development must address the impacts of the current closure regime, end quote. That means that the conclusion is that Gaza is far beyond foreign aid alone, and that the blockades imposed by Israel and Egypt on the coastal enclave must be lifted to a degree. Israeli officials have not yet commented on the report, having just returned from a meeting of similar topics in the United States. Turns out that almost no one turns that frown upside down more than Israelis. The UN has just released its findings of their annual World Happiness Report, ranking the overall happiness of the world's countries. And guess what? Out of the 150 countries listed, Israel is the 11th happiest country on Earth. The UN's report compiles all kinds of information to make its annual list: healthcare, integration of foreigners, etc. Israel scored 11th place on last year's list, too. Improvements on Israel's average life expectancy was pointed out as a major reason the Jewish state was able to retain its spot, topping Western countries like the US, France, and Germany. There was a little bit preventing Israel from cracking the top 10, though. The report calls out Israel's overall unwillingness to accept migrants or refugees, as well as poor emotional well-being of Israelis in general, as the biggest things holding the country back. I think Dr. King might have said it best. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.